So hello everybody and welcome to today's Hug. I am Amy Martos. I am the Senior Marketing Executive here at HubGem. And today hosting, we have Ellie, who is one of the HubSpot CRM executives here at HubGem as well. So smarter segmentation, reaching audience with HubSpot lists and properties. So that's what we'll be diving into today. So our agenda for today, Ellie's going to run through different points. So why segmentation matters, kind of understanding properties, structuring and naming properties, and then the difference between static and active lists, and then using these lists for campaigns and automation. And then we'll maybe run through a couple of examples as well if we've got time regarding education organizations. So I will now pass you on over to Ellie, who will jump right in, and I will be manning the chat and questions for everybody.
Lovely. Thank you, Amy. So yeah, let's just get started then. So why segmentation matters. So segmentation is about making communication personalised, relevant and timely. So when people receive the right message, they're more likely to engage and act upon that. So the benefits can include better engagement, improved conversion rates, more effective automation, and reduced email fatigue and unsubscribes. Without the segmentation, you may risk sending kind of blanket emails that don't really resonate with your audience. So that's why segmentation is key. And I'm going to speak to you a bit more about it in the next slides. So we're going to start off by understanding properties. So what properties are they kind of like the building blocks of segmentation within your HubSpot account. They hold the data that you can segment by. So we've got contact, company and deal properties here, just as an example, which are kind of the most common three anyway. So contact properties can hold information about individuals. So this can be like first name and email to be able to communicate with them. We've then got company properties, which is kind of organization level information. So this can be like agencies or feeder schools, for example. And then we've got your deal properties as well, which can be your student data, application information, and things like that. And I'm just going to touch on custom properties as well, which kind of falls in all of them sections there. So custom properties are created for your specific needs. So for example, it might be scholarship type, or if they're a day or boarding student, kind of year group on entry and things like that, for example, as you can see in those screenshots there. So the right mix of kind of default HubSpot properties and your custom properties, you can then better segment your data, and then your reporting will be better off the back of that as well. So structuring and naming your properties. This is really important, obviously, when it comes to creating your properties. So I'd always keep your property names clear, simple, and consistent. This way it kind of reduces confusion between teams and things like that. I'd also always recommend grouping your properties logically. So for example, we can group our properties by maybe admissions properties, marketing properties, alumni, parent, student data as well. So you can kind of group these into groups. And what the groups are kind of act as like folders in a way. So I just kind of think of that. It's kind of easier to remember that way. So I'd always recommend grouping them, because that way it's kind of, you know, clear, concise, and you know, like what these properties are used for. I'd also avoid duplicating fields at all times, because then again, that's going to cause kind of data bloat in a way. So if you're creating properties that no one uses, or it's a duplicate of another property, that's why I'd always recommend naming them very clearly, and then that way it causes less confusion. And also just making sure that the whole team kind of understands what each property means and how to use it. So a bit of planning now is always going to lead to kind of smoother automation and reporting later down the line. Now I'm just going to quickly move on to lists. So we have static and active lists. So these are the two type of lists that you'll find in your HubSpot account. So we've got static lists, which are kind of fixed memberships, one-off snapshots. For example, maybe you want to capture attendees for a specific open day. I'd recommend using a static list there, as that is like a snapshot in time. So that's a good example there. We've got active lists as well. So these are kind of dynamic. They update automatically based on the rules. For example, if you want to see a list of all 2025 applicants who haven't submitted the relevant documents in the application form, for example, you can have these lists of people, and they'll update based on whether they have then submitted those documents or not. So it's always relevant, and you can obviously chase to those relevant people as well for those documents. Both are valuable for different scenarios, as I've kind of highlighted there. They're both very useful. So static for kind of reporting and like maybe one-off sends and, that snapshot in time of that event, for example, and active for kind of ongoing segmentation. So with active lists, people can move in and out of these lists depending if they meet the criteria or not. So if you just think of static as kind of like a photo, so that's like a snapshot in time. Active is the live data that deals and contacts can come in and out of depending if they meet the criteria of that list or not. So that's a bit about lists, and they're very useful. As you can see in the screenshot there, I've got a few examples of how you can kind of use these lists, which is great. So using lists for campaigns and automation. So lists are kind of the engine behind targeting in HubSpot, I would say. You can use them for your email campaigns, your workflows, and your reporting. For the email campaigns, for example, you can target invitations or newsletters to the relevant people. You can then use kind of those lists to target your smart content to those relevant people. So yeah, it's not kind of that blanket email that people may be receiving. It's segmented correctly. So maybe year group on entry, for example, you might want to target the year 7s differently to the way you target the year 12s. And then you can obviously do that within your emails, which is great. And using lists and properties there is the highlight of that. We've got workflows as well. So you can automate the follow-ups there. So you can add a list into the trigger. As you can see in this example, I've got a list in that trigger, and then off the back of that, I can send an event reminder if I need to. I'd say this is really powerful to automate your follow-ups, so it reduces the manual kind of following up there. You can follow up via if they've applied and they haven't submitted all the documents. Event reminders, so we could have a week before event reminder, a day before event reminder as well. And yeah, just a couple of examples there for workflows. I think that is really powerful when coming to segmenting your data, and then obviously off the back of that, receiving those relevant comms. Reporting as well, so reporting and analyzing. You can then compare how different segments of data engage. So this can be different year groups, year on entry. You might have one year better than the other. Then you might want to compare maybe your kind of processes there and take inspiration from the previous year if they did better, or maybe keep going the way you are going if data shows better in the recent times. So like I said previously, an example here could be kind of application or event reminders. You can also use your email campaigns and lists for alumni reach out. So yeah, I think it's really powerful, and obviously highlighting this segment in your data is great, and lists and properties are really helpful for that. So just some educational use cases here. I've kind of touched on this before, but open day communication is probably the most common one that we see. So this can be segmenting by interest. So this could be like boarding or day, year groups. So like I said previously, you might want to reach out to the year 7 students differently to the way you reach out to sixth form students. And this way, by using the lists and the properties, you can segment that data and then tailor that communication there. And that way you'll get better engagement and hopefully better follow-ups off the back of that as well. We've also got alumni outreach, which I touched on just then. So you can kind of use graduation year, that might be a property, for example, or maybe the subject they studied, to then personalize those communications, which will then better your, engagement and things like that. And then your reports will reflect that as well. We've also got application reminders, which I think is a big one, to be honest. So you can have your active lists to ensure that you're nudging the correct people who maybe have missed something in the application form that's important and you need that information. You can then use that list in a workflow, and off the back of that, you can automate an email campaign and send an email relevant to nudge them with the correct information for them to complete their application to the school. All these examples are very easy to set up if you have, that well-structured data to begin with. So just highlighting the importance of kind of clear and concise properties there, and also then using the lists off the back of that as well. So I realise I've kind of talked at a million miles per hour, so apologies, but some key takeaways off the back of that is the top one is good segmentation equals better engagement and outcomes. So yeah, the better your data is segmented, the better the engagement, and obviously that will then be reflected in your reporting. So you can segment your audiences by the properties. So this might be geographical, it might be their interest, it might be year group on entry, it might be year on entry, boarding and day, all these kind of examples that I've given previously anyway. But that is kind of, really important when coming to segment your data. Structure your data carefully with well thought out properties. I think this is kind of the key and kind of the bare bones of your HubSpot CRM. If you have well structured properties, it will then support in the automation and the reporting as well. So I feel like the properties part is key. I'd always make sure that your team is kind of aligned on maybe naming conventions, grouping your properties appropriately and things like that, just to save any confusion there. Also, using lists strategically to power your email campaigns and your automation and your reporting. I've kind of highlighted that before, and using kind of the correct lists, whether that's static or active, depending on what it is. So obviously static is a snapshot, that can be an event, and active is kind of ongoing applications and things like that. I'd always try to avoid clutter where possible by reviewing and cleaning up any kind of unused properties and lists. You may have, for example, a property that says school year group of entry and another one that says year group of entry, and one of them might be used more than the other. So to avoid that clutter, kind of just coming together and reviewing that and seeing which one is better naming convention and which one people kind of know which one to use more, I guess. So I just review that and clean up anything like that. It just avoids clutter then, doesn't it? And any messy data and things like that, and anything unused, and that's taking up room that it doesn't need to. And also finally, just looking to education specific examples for inspiration, but I'd always refine your own strategy as well, so that it may be good to kind of look at all these different kind of education specific examples. But always remember that your data is your data, and the way you use it is obviously key to you. So yeah, any naming conventions you can come up with, any different types of lists that are obviously relevant to you is the most important there. But you can obviously use any education specific examples for inspiration, whilst remembering that your own strategy is important as well. That is everything that I have to say at the moment. If there are any questions, then please do let me know.
We actually do have a couple of questions, if that's all right, Ellie. So
yeah, of course.
one we've got is, so what is the most common mistake kind of you see in education teams make with segmentation?
Oh, that's a good one. I feel like this kind of ties into what I was saying in the key takeaways with kind of clutter and things like that. So I'd say the biggest mistake is kind of creating too many properties. I mean, properties are great when segmenting your data, of course. But if you make too many properties and then obviously off the back of that making too many lists without kind of a clear structure, it can lead to duplicate fields, messy data. You might have things in one property and another property, but they're actually the same thing. So it's obviously grabbing that in a report, grabbing that in a report, and it kind of gets a bit messy and a bit busy. So yeah, maybe creating too many properties and maybe too many lists can cause confusion. And people might not know which property to use. So the best approach is kind of to agree on, that property naming convention and reviewing your lists regularly to keep them relevant. So some of them might be outdated, some of them might be using properties that you don't use anymore. So just, keeping on top of that to avoid any clutter.
Amazing. Thank you so much. One more actually so far. When should a static list be used rather than like an active list? Like, what's the difference there? I know you've kind of touched on that, but just like when should they be used?
Yeah, of course. So static lists are best for when you want a fixed group of people, right? So for example, everyone who's registered for a specific open day. That is probably the best example that I can give, because obviously you can't change who has registered and you can't change who's attended. People aren't going to attend the day after because the event's over, for example. So you'd always use a static list for that fixed group of people for that event, for example. Active lists are better when the group kind of changes over time. So, for example, you might want all current applicants for 2025-26. If the audience is kind of ongoing and rule-based, I'd always go active. If it's one-off, I'd go static. That's probably, the best advice I can give there.
Amazing. And I've got another one. Perfect. So how can segmentation improve reporting?
Okay, so by segmenting your database, you can compare how different groups kind of behave. So there might be maybe better engagement from year 7 applicants than there is maybe year 12 applicants. For example, again, you can kind of measure whether families maybe from overseas engage better with your emails, or whether they engage differently to kind of local families, or whether alumni from different year groups respond to campaigns at different rates. Maybe the engagement is better across different year groups, or maybe across course interest and things like that. And then from there, you can kind of take inspiration from those different places. That insight helps you refine your strategy and focus your resources where they have the biggest impact. And then obviously you can refine your processes and things like that off the back of that reporting there.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much. Well, let's move on. If anybody else has any kind of more questions, then please do, feel free to pop them in the chat. We can kind of come back to them. If not, then, reach out to one of us at the HubGem team and we'll either through email or on LinkedIn, reach out. We'll be able to answer you there. So yeah, just kind of as we approach the end of this hug, we wanted to share with you just like a couple of resources for you to enjoy. So these will be coming to you in your kind of follow-up email with the hug recording. So we've got a number of blog posts and a wee HubGem resource as well, a bit of content for you to download. So I've popped together a few which coincide with the hug today, and I've also popped together a wee HubSpot resource as well from their blog, which will help. So you've got your customer segmentation there as well, segmentation users and client effectively. And then moving on as well, so a couple of next steps for you. So if you enjoyed this hug, like if you want to kind of find out more, then please do subscribe to our marketing and missions blog at HubGem, where you'll have a list, an abundance of kind of resources and information there on all things HubSpot. So yeah, please do enjoy our free resources, and we do have hugs every other month. So please look out on Baby for that. Look, have a wee look, sign up for any that tickle your fancy. Also, all of our past and future hugs, you can find the recordings of them. They're all available on our YouTube channel. So do pop on and subscribe, please. We would love it. And of course, if you're looking for more of a community vibe, we do have a kind of education community group. We've taken the Facebook one down, so we do just have the LinkedIn one at the moment. Sorry, I should have adjusted that. But please do go on there. You can engage with like kind of like-minded individuals who are in the education sector, who may be able to like answer some questions that you may have. Like if we can, I'm sure we can, but maybe if there's a kind of organization similar experiencing something in terms of like marketing and mission, like please do engage there. It's a really great community for kind of like getting everyone together. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me and Ellie today. We thoroughly enjoyed that. And I know, oh, there we go. I've got another question actually. Perfect. Sorry, Kalpana. Can we touch on this quickly? Yeah. How do we know if we have segmented enough or if we have overcomplicated it? Are you able to answer that one, Ellie?
I can try my best. That is a good question. I guess there's obviously that fine balance if you've segmented enough or if you've maybe overcomplicated it. I guess this is kind of mostly an internal discussion to see if the data is showing correctly to you, basically. So you might want to segment on year group on entry, year of entry, day or boarding, for example, depending on your organization. You can really refine it as much as you would like. Whether that's overcomplicating it, that's a different question. I guess it really just depends on why you're segmenting your data. Are you tailoring it in an email? Are you reaching out, I don't know, for applications? I'm not really sure. Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure if I've answered that in the greatest way, but I think it's down to kind of personal preference. Maybe if you have like 50 plus filters in your list that use 50 properties, maybe that is kind of overcomplicating it a little bit. But I'd say maybe up to 10 filters is fine. I'd personally say, again, depending on what you're segmenting, you might want to do year on entry, year group entry, course interest, day or boarding. That's 4 there. And if you want to then, further drill that down, you can do. But that might be a bit complicated. It might be a bit too much to add loads and loads of different lists in your emails to segment that data. But again, yeah, I think that's mostly like personal preference. Yeah, hopefully that kind of answered it a little bit.
But yeah, okay. Any more questions? And please do feel free to reach out to one of us at HubSpot. And again, we can do our best to answer them for you. But I think we will wrap up there and leave it for now. So thank you so much again for joining us. And we hope to see you at our next hug. Bye.
Thank you.